Hello, welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr. Hello, welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about something interesting that I read that the New York Post is reporting about a source to Obama saying that he did not think Kamala could win and was surprised Biden endorsed her and he wanted somebody else, which I find all that very believable because, of course, she was polling very badly. She's very radical. But the media, as we talked yesterday, is going in overtime really trying to rewrite her past. There's talking points going out about her whole being the border czar, which there are nice, cuts that have already been put together that we can talk about and show. But yeah, they're trying to erase her past with her being the border czar, being put over the border, being designated that. They're trying to erase her history with her convictions or prosecutions with like marijuana or just to black people and stuff because they think that'll really hurt her, I guess. And which is interesting because obviously people on her side won't like it because that's why it was used against her, but it's not really great for Republicans to run to the left of Kamala Harris on that issue. So it's kind of like a sticky situation for Republicans to even use it, but obviously the Democrats are concerned about it and the media is concerned about it because they're here trying to make it seem like they only arrested like 45 people in her tenure because they're trying to do some wordplay, which we addressed yesterday. And also they don't want her to be known as the most liberal senator. So just lots of crazy stuff going on. Also, we got to talk about Biden's farewell address, where he did not admit that he was sick and dropping out because he was sick, even though he said that basically, he'd have to be sick or God would have to tell him to drop out. And he just decided to do it to save democracy, whatever the heck that means. So, well, those are the things we'll be talking about today. Before we jump into it, I encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, articles, videos, etc. I did drop an article today about Kamala being a DEI hire. She is. It explains. It has different sources of people insisting that Joe Biden should pick a black person, and Harry Reid saying that race was very important. It does make the case so that we shouldn't be focusing on it, but it's crazy that people are pretending like it's racist to just acknowledge what's right in front of our face. So I did drop that article today. I hope you guys read it and shared it and so on. But there's lots of articles you guys can check out at my website. There's different merch that you guys can also check out the website, like this goat hoodie. I also have a goat t-shirt that's available. I do have it in different colors because not everybody wants to get white. I have the I'm not the victim you're looking for shirt. That is I made this after the Gina Carano situation, which there's an update to that story. If you're not familiar, Gina Carano, I do have a video way back in my archive after she did her interview with Ben Shapiro about when she was fired from the show The Mandalorian. She played Cara Dune, I believe, I think was the name of the character. I didn't really watch The Mandalorian, but she was let go after some comments that she made. Now they fired her, slandered her really on the way out, claiming that she was like disrespecting the Jewish faith and Jewish people because she made reference the Holocaust, and it was essentially like during COVID and how people were turning in each other's neighbors and being paranoid and awful to one another. And it was just along those lines of people snitching on turning against each other in the community. So it was just a reference like that. And so they blew that up and they're like, oh, Gina doesn't work for us, which was news to her. So she heard it at the same time we all did. Now, that's not the real reason why they got rid of her. That's when they decided to take her out, when they slandered her there. But that's not why she got fired. She got let go, at least when they stopped kind of communicating with her some time ago. Before that, they were online they're really pressuring celebrities to put their pronouns in their bios. And so she wrote beep bop boop, which are like droid noises, because I guess she didn't want to be bullied by people. So she just put beep bop boop. And people were so mad about that. So Disney wanted her to apologize, and they wanted her to do all this PR stuff. And so they had like a specialist, an LGBT specialist, talk to her about this stuff. And so they wanted her to get on some kind of Zoom call with like 40 LGBT people. And so she said, "Okay, I can make a statement, but I want to, like, I'm not going to say some bullcrap statement. I just want to explain where I'm coming from." Or with the 40 people thing, which should just sound like a struggle session where they wanted everybody to rag on the white woman and her to, like, apologize and, whatever. She said, "How about I take a couple people out to dinner, and they can look into my eyes and I could look into their eyes, and we could just have a conversation and kind of get to know each other and, see where we're coming from." And they didn't like it. So, and that was basically the end of their relationship. And Disney didn't have any further contact as far as what I'm aware of, according to like the story that Gina basically told. And so, she heard she was fired after this other comment. Now we know that, like, Pedro Pascal, who's the lead star of The Mandalorian, um, he has tweeted out and said things that were far more politically offensive, than what the stuff that Gina writes, and other Disney stars have written and said things that were more offensive. They put Lizzo and Jack Black, weren't they together like in one episode? Jack Black got into a lot of trouble as of late when his bandmate said a comment. It was his birthday and they asked, like, "What is your wish?" And he said, "Don't miss next time," talking about Trump, who was, nearly assassinated recently. So, and Lizzo says political stuff all the time, which is really dumb. We addressed some stuff that Lizzo said the past 2 days. So she still owes me $5,000, by the way. She has not paid me. So if you want to at Lizzo and tell her to pay Black Tea News, she can go to my website and drop it in my website, or she can, I did a video, my Cash App is on there. So anyone is welcome to send cash, but Lizzo said that, for $5,000, and I answered her question. So I'd like my $5,000 from Lizzo. But a lot of celebrities say stuff, and they shouldn't. A lot of things that they shouldn't say. I mean, everybody has free speech, but people go to entertainers for some sort of escapism. So you start saying stuff at your own peril. So that works both ways for Gina, and it works, for the other folks on the other side of the aisle. But Disney really seems to be pushing things one way. So, Gina was let go. So Elon Musk, after he took over Twitter, he said that they would start doing lawsuits for people who were fired, like exercising their free speech on the platform. And so Gina qualified. So she hasn't met Elon, according to what she tweeted, but they did get lawyers together and they put a case against Disney. So Disney has tried to dismiss the case, and their motion to dismiss was not granted. So she's going to be able to tell her side of the story in a full-on trial. Now, we don't know what's going to happen with her. I think they obviously said some comments about her that were not true when they announced that she was dismissed. So I don't know how it's going to go for Disney, but they absolutely, like, slandered her. They absolutely did on their way out the door. It was a horrific, even, I don't care how you feel about Gina Carano and what she said and her politics. If you actually go read the statement that Disney, like Lucasfilm, released when they got rid of her, I think it was pretty much a PR nightmare. It was not appropriate at all how they decided to get rid of her. So they have a lot of money, a lot of backing. Apparently her family has a lot of, like, background and, like, stuff that I didn't know about as far as, like, connections and whatever. But and Elon Musk is obviously backing her. So there's a lot of money, but I mean, Disney is this huge monster. But again, it's pretty clear cut that they slandered this woman. But what I found most remarkable about the whole Gina Carano situation, and I did a top 5 takeaway video. Again, somewhere in my archives, you guys can go find that video. I'll try to find it and post it in my on social media, on the like the community thing, and on YouTube, and maybe on Facebook and stuff. But I made the point that Gina was not really that politically active or politically minded. And so she said she kind of thought to herself, I'm getting older, let me look into some stuff. And so perhaps she leaned kind of right. But the more she looked into stuff, maybe she was affirming some ideas. But after the people came after her the way that they did, why would she think about going left at all or supporting Democrats if that's the way that they treated her? And who were the ones who decided to support her after she was let go? It was the Daily Wire. It was Ben Shapiro and those folks that stood in the gap to work with her and to, do that movie that she did, which it wasn't my thing, but I did watch it to support and stuff. But you know, I wish her the best with this lawsuit. I wish her the best. It was Disney did her dirty. Disney did her dirty. But anyway, that's when I made this shirt back then. I'm not the victim you're looking for, and it's one of my favorite shirts that I made and other people have gotten. That's probably the one that people have gotten most, besides like the goat shirt and the goat hoodie. But yeah, it's one of my favorites. And anyway, still in our intro, huh? We got the black tea mug and stuff. If you guys do want to support, you guys can go to blacktnews.com and to the donate page to support, because it does cost to stream and run my website, all that stuff. So you guys can support. I very much do appreciate you guys. There's some needs that I do have at Black Tea News. So if you can support, if you can help, I thank you. Like, I know someone had left a comment on my Lizzo video the other day, and they're like, I would give it to you if I had it, but this economy, this with this Bidenomics. I'm like, oh, I totally understand. And people are like, I can't wait to find out what you're gonna do with that $5,000. I'm like, I'm gonna like put it toward my rent. Like, it's rough out here. Like, you know, um, for everybody. So I don't, we'll see what Lizzo does. People are tagging her. I clearly answered her question. I don't know why people put out challenges like for $5,000 if you're not gonna do it. But she's definitely got the money. Anyway, let's chit chat about the tea. The tea of the day. The tea of the day. So this was fascinating. Um, it's from the New York Post. You can say, well, they lean right, they don't know, blah blah blah. They've been right about plenty of stuff, including the Hunter Biden laptop story. So, but they said Obama doesn't believe Kamala Harris can beat Trump, which is why he hasn't endorsed her, sources say. Former President Barack Obama hasn't endorsed Kamala Harris' presidential bid because he doesn't think she can beat Donald Trump, according to a source close to the Biden family. Bum, bum, bum. Bum, bum, bum. Which the Biden family, Biden sources were very TO'd about Biden and them trying to force them out. And so before Biden came out and, decided to get out, they were like, oh, well, it's Obama that is the reason why we have Trump anyway, because they pushed Hillary Clinton. And that was kind of news to me. Like, there's been talk about how they don't really like each other, or Biden, that Obama kind of looks down on Biden and is annoyed by him. I mean, there's that line about, don't underestimate how Joe can bleep stuff up. So, it kind of makes sense. But I thought it was kind of crazy to hear that they push Hillary over Joe, because I mean, maybe just he knows Joe better than everybody, so maybe he just was like, he's going to screw this up if we give it to him. It's much safer if we do it with Hillary, and it is her time, blah blah blah. She's paid her dues. Maybe he made some kind of other deals with Hillary. I don't know, but I thought Biden would have been a real force back in 2016 and a much better choice for them than Hillary Clinton. So it's kind of wild to me if they did choose Hillary over Biden, because I was, very concerned, and everybody I talked to was very concerned of that possibility. So anyway, this stuff sounds believable. This stuff sounds believable. This kind of animosity between them and the families and the leaks. They're very messy. You can't have like one of them, like a very close family member, or the actual person like Obama or Biden coming out saying this stuff themselves. They have to go through their aides and leak that stuff. You didn't hear these many leaks prior to, people trying to force Biden out, but the leaks are everywhere kind of now. I'm sure they'll start to tighten all that stuff up though. Following President Obama's shocking exit from the race on Sunday and his immediate endorsement of the vice president, most of the Democratic elite have been quick to rally behind Harris, but Obama is a notable exception. Obama is very upset because he knows she can't win, the Biden family source told the Post. Obama knows she's just incompetent. The border czar, who never visited the border, saying that all migrants should have health insurance, she cannot navigate the landmines that are ahead of her. When you are running for president, there are things you can and can't say. And that's true. And people will say, well, it'll be different this time. Maybe. And she seems to be kind of like been coached and taking some advice as of the past couple days. So I think this go around will probably be better than her last go around. But she said so many crazy things back in 2020, and it's on video. It's on video. She said crazy things about Joe. Joe said things about her and her record, her criminal record, which I saw people sharing around on those debates stuff back and forth on, TikTok today. So, these people who go up against each other in these primaries, you have to be careful about what you say. Now, everything should be true, right? About your opponent. And if they did it, they did it, and they have to live up to that. And you make your case on why they shouldn't be the nominee. But you have to remember, though, part of it is it's a team sport. And so what's going to happen in the primary, in the general election, when all the stuff you said about your opponent is going to be up, for grabs in these ads, especially if you're someone who was running against them and now you're the running mate, and it's like the vice president said, or the vice presidential nominee said this about this opponent, blah, blah, blah. So you have to be really careful. That's just my advice to Democrats and Republicans who want to run for something and you're running against somebody. Like, you have to be kind of careful about how you attack your opponent. I would always urge you to say things that are true. Always be honest, because you're a trash human being if you lie, and I know people want to say and do whatever they can to win, but I would encourage you to be moral and ethical, because if your opponent is really that bad, you should be able to defeat them with the truth. But when my oldest sister ran for chair of the Michigan Republican Party back in 2019, and we were careful about how we attacked the opponent and how negative and stuff we would go and whatnot, because there were some things that she did in her voting record that could definitely be criticized as a whole. That folks would not like if we brought to light, which folks could just easily look up, but not everybody does that sort of thing. She was Attorney General's wife, Laura Cox, and she ran for state house, and then she ran for Senate, and she lost the Senate seat, and then we lost the House seat that she abandoned. So you could say she was responsible for 2 losses, and then we lost real bad the year she was chair. So they just, they piled up. But I did this video, 50 reasons not to vote for Hillary Clinton, when I worked at the Michigan Republican Party, and I could have easily made one against her for my sister. But we decided not to go super, super negative, because at the end of the day, the things that we would have criticized about her would have also drawn a lot of attention to a lot of other Republicans who voted in a similar way. Now, we don't like that they voted in a similar way, which I'm talking about in cases where they voted to raise some taxes and did some irresponsible kind of spending. In the case that we won, and she won and my sister became chair, she drew a lot of fire to the people that she had to help get elected. So we were always thinking bigger picture. That's what we were always doing. Now they were doing all kinds of crazy stuff and putting all kinds of stories in the paper. Like we got called by the paper and they're like, "Oh, did your co-chair run like a marijuana store or something?" And like his name is like on this or whatever. So we called the co-chair. His name is John Corey, and so he's like, "Nope, that's not me. That's another John." And so they're like so quick to try to come at us. And there were other things like when my sister was like years ago had like a foreclosure on the house, which she helped with the bills quite a bit. So they like put that in the paper to try to embarrass the family and stuff, which we continuously had like things we could push back and say as a response to that were very moving. So we thought ahead about how they would attack us and how we would respond, but we never decided to go for the jugular for her. The only thing that we really did was at the very end, like the day of the convention, um we did launch an attack against her, and that's because sorry if all this backstory is kind of boring you, but um but um they my sister had ran for an office in Detroit for a seat. I don't remember exactly what it was for. Now, when you work at a state party or something, you want to try to get as many people to run in as many seats as possible because there's always a chance you could win, even if it's a heavy Democrat area. Maybe the person drops out, maybe they die, maybe they, I don't know, act of God, people randomly get common sense and to decide to vote for you. I don't. There just could always be a chance, and there's also the chance that someone really bad could try to put their name in the primary, and then it's like, oh, there's a Nazi on the ballot. So you want to try to prevent stuff like that. So you want to make sure that every seat you have as possible is filled. So my sister ran for a position while she worked at state party, just put her name on the ballot. Um, even though she wasn't gonna really campaign and stuff, they just wanted her name to be there. Um, so once you put your name on a ballot, you get all kinds of surveys and stuff to fill out. And so she didn't fill out a survey about some kind of pro-life issue. So her opponent took that opportunity to try to say that she was pro-choice. And if you guys follow me, like, that's a detestable accusation. So we addressed that once they started putting mailers and stuff out there. We like sent out an email. My sister's like, put my phone number on there so people can directly call me and stuff. And it was, made sure how she thought was on her, how she felt was on the website and stuff, which a lot of people didn't think that it made sense anyway. They're like, they're going to tell me that these preachers' kids are for abortion. Like, that doesn't sound like that makes a lot of sense. So the organization who sent out the survey were not happy. And so somebody gave us information about Laura Cox, who did not fill out the survey herself, like the following year. So the reason why they did that was because they just felt that the most evil thing that you can do is accuse someone of wanting to kill babies. So they sent out us a copy of the unfilled out survey or whatever of Laura Cox. And so so the morning of the campaign, we sent out of the actual vote, we sent out a mass email with that out. So that got him good. That got him real good. So it was a really close race. And the only reason why my sister didn't win is because Ronna McDaniel, who's the RNC chair, she had got Brad Parscale, who was the Trump campaign manager, to endorse Laura Cox. And she was actually whipping votes on the floor the day of convention, telling people to vote for Laura Cox. And that's who the Trump campaign wanted. So even with that, it was really close. So it was a very interesting story. I've talked about it, touched on it before with you guys. I haven't told a long story about it in a while, but sorry to get off track. But my point in bringing all that up and going to the explanation was you have to think bigger picture sometimes and be careful about how you attack folks. And be very careful about what you say. Kamala Harris was not careful about what she said. I mean, she's very liberal, the most liberal senator according to what YouGov used to say. No, it was Gov Tracker, whatever the thing that rated her, that they're kind of reneging on. But she co-sponsored a lot of really really leftist stuff, and I don't know what all of her convictions actually are. She's a California Democrat, so she could be as crazy as a bag of cats, I guess. But she mostly says things to just get ahead, is just a blatant opportunist, and she was trying to stand out in a primary with some really radical people, and so now she's automatically, pushed into a general election just a few months out, and they're trying to rewrite history as her not being the super radical person who hasn't who said a bunch of crazy things when she was at the forefront. And she's been a part of this administration that's done a lot of crazy things and has been very unsuccessful. And she's personally been very unsuccessful, like as the borders are, which they're trying to claim that she never was. So yeah, I absolutely believe that Obama thinks that she cannot win and that she's a gamble and that they probably wanted someone else. That makes absolute perfect sense to me. So I don't really doubt that they didn't want her, that Biden did, that Obama didn't want her. Anyway, the turning point for Biden 81 came to disastrous performance against Trump on a televised debate in Atlanta last month, which the Post first revealed was part of an elaborate setup to remove him from the race. But the source doesn't have high hopes for TV debate between Trump and Harris. When Biden was still in the race, a second debate was scheduled for September 10. Wait until the debate. She can't debate. She's going to be put her foot in her mouth about Israel, Palestine, Ukraine. She's going to say something really stupid, the source said. I cannot imagine her having anything intelligent to say about those topics. I mean, she can memorize lines, though. She's not the most awful debater in the world. So there's a chance that she could win a debate. People are like, oh, Trump's going to crush her, and there's people who said, oh, Kamala's going to crush him. I don't know how it's going to turn out, to be honest. I don't know. Trump knows how to really pick some good moments and thrash you, but he doesn't go super deep into the details. Like if we're talking about something like the economics of, like, I don't know, trade or taxes or something, he can go into some nitty gritty with some stuff, but otherwise it's going to be pretty basic, you know. But he can make some really good points. Kamala, she's very word salad. She's very rehearsed, can read very well off of whatever speeches they've prepared for her the past couple of days on a debate stage. And I don't know how she's going to do. She didn't do awful against Mike Pence, but she certainly didn't win that debate. So how is she going to handle being the forefront person on foreign policy? Joe Biden, he's not healthy, but he still knows his stuff, right? He knows his stuff. He's a gaffe machine, but is he a total idiot? Kamala Harris is not wise, and she's kind of a socialist or commie, whatever. Obama knew this was going to happen. Joe knew this was going to happen. Now she is going to have to answer real questions. The White House did not respond to the Post's request for comment on the story. According to the source, Obama's hope was to get Biden out of the way and an op-ed written by George Clooney in the New York Times asking him to step aside was part of that plan. However, which people assumed George Clooney did it because of Obama, which they did apparently meet, but they not meet, but I think they talked, but they allegedly didn't talk about the op-ed, whatever. However, the higher ups in the Democratic Party didn't count on Biden endorsing Harris right away, and Obama was shocked when the president endorsed her, according to the Insider. Um, After Biden's ouster, Obama, who did not return a request for comment Wednesday, wanted Arizona Senator and former astronaut Mark Kelly at the top of the ticket when Democratic National Convention is held next month, the source said. Obama is furious that things haven't gone his way, which is why he is not joining the Democratic Party's support of Harris, the Biden source added. Another well placed Democratic source said Obama being surprised by a smart political decision actually makes sense when occupied with his personal inability to see politics beyond his singular immediate interest. Obama always thinks he is the smartest and the coolest guy in the room. He's friends with George Clooney after all. Ooh, they're really mad about that article. Rod Bladjevich, the disgrace. Okay. A former governor of Illinois who denounced Obama as a threat to democracy in Wall Street Journal op-ed Tuesday told the Post he believes Obama was instrumental in getting Biden out of the race. He said he's now supporting Trump. He was the governor of Illinois when Obama became a state governor in 2005. He's on The Apprentice. They didn't mention that, but I just remember he was on The Apprentice. It's Biden's departure from the race couldn't have happened without him. He told the Post, without Obama, Biden is still the Democratic nominee. Obama was the conductor leading the orchestra that convinced Biden to step aside. There have been Obama ended his role as Illinois senator when he was elected president in 2008, while the governor was impeached in 2009 for attempting to sell Obama's vacant Senate seat, removed from office and convicted on corruption charges a year later. Obama persuading Biden not to run for the presidency in 2008 in order to allow Hillary Clinton a shot at the White House has also since been a sticking point between them, according to reports. He was not encouraging, Biden told the New York Times, referring to the former president who believed at the time the former Secretary of State had a better chance of beating Trump. He's running the Democratic Party like a Chicago ward boss from the shadows of a back room. The governor said in this case, it's a big back room because he has a lot of big houses. Dun dun dun. So that's interesting. As far as Obama picking Mark Kelly, that to me makes more sense because I said that they talked about Gavin Newsom. I told you guys why I don't think Gavin Newsom made sense because he's way too radical. Whitmer was a better pick than Gavin, but there could be backlash with her COVID stuff for the whole country. I don't know, but she's a way better person on the bench than Gavin. But I thought Josh Shapiro was a really good pick for them. But I didn't really factor in how anti-Semitic the Democrats are. But that's a talking point among mainstream media. Them saying I don't know if she should pick him as a VP because there's a lot of anti-Semitism. I'm like, you guys have a problem. If you really think that's going to hinder her chance to win the country, because her base won't back her. You guys really have to do something about the anti-Semitism. But I thought it was a big gamble though for them to just go against Trump and have this short campaign and go for it. So Mark Kelly, who is a senator, astronaut, you can't be. I mean, he votes with the Democrats, but you can't be too crazy to be to be the senator of Arizona, which is purple nowadays, I guess. But and he's an astronaut, so it's just I can see why that would be a pick for Obama, and why he'd want to push that. I can see that. I see a lot of people being mad about looking over Kamala Harris, but Kamala Harris winning, that's a tough act for them to get through because of all of her crazy policies. Very, very tough for them to do that, but it's interesting, and I like good tea. I like good tea. This is not tea today, but it's some water, but very interesting stuff. Speaking of Kamala and how awful she was, I mentioned yesterday that Bibi went to speak in front of Congress and stuff, and Kamala Harris wasn't there. There were plenty of Democrats who boycotted. There were some who decided to protest while there, like Rashida Tlaib. She had a little sign that she held up that said, war criminal. So, attendant but childish. But Kamala Harris wasn't there. And I think that should be like, a ding against her. But it's funny. I found this article, like if you Google it, one of the articles that pop up first is uh like why didn't Kamala attend the speech? One of the first articles that will pop up is this article from Politico. So Senate Republicans blast Kamala Harris, but not JD Vance for skipping. um I know. Okay, first of all, Kamala Harris at this point is running for president. Vance is running for vice president. Okay. JD Vance is running for vice president. Kamala Harris is the vice president. Okay. I hope we're all on the same page. So it's very simple for everyone to understand. The vice president is the president of the Senate. Okay. So it kind of seems like the person who is currently the vice president might be necessary for them to go. It just kind of seems like it's a bigger deal if Kamala Harris is there rather than JD Vance, who just, got nominated by his party like a week ago, when Kamala Harris is the freaking vice president. And she should have been on that tarmac when he arrived to greet him. Like she's busy doing campaign stuff. I know she's busy doing campaign stuff, but she's still the vice president. Not that, she's been too attentive to her tasks anyway. But how stupid is this? This whataboutism article about them not blast Republicans don't blast the person who's not the vice president and doesn't like I know JD Vance, he is a senator, but he should have gone there too, I guess. True. But Kamala Harris is the vice president who wants to be the president. We could say they both should have been there. But Kamala Harris and the Democrats, they have a problem. They have an image problem. And it's more than an image problem. It's just reality that they have been, coddling a lot of this rhetoric that's been really, really disgusting for months upon months upon months. And the other day, there was all these protests. They took down these flags and they did graffiti, at like Union Station, and it was like pro-Hamas stuff. And Kamala Harris, to her credit, did come out strongly against it. She did come out strongly against it and wrote a little statement condemning it. Sure, I appreciate that. But why is it like we condemn them instead of we're going to prosecute all these suckers? Like this wasn't just speech. This was people doing vandalism in our nation's capital. So tell me why people, there were people who did vandalism and stuff on January 6th, but there are people who arrested who are walking around and all kinds of different stuff. And there's folks who had really, really harsh convictions who probably shouldn't and got swept up. But there's these people who had, with the BLM stuff or this stuff today, not just today, it's been going on for months. They go and they vandalize, they burn American flags, they spray paint stuff, they take down American flags and raise up the Palestinian flags. And what happens to these people? What kind of repercussions do they have? If there were some harsh repercussions going on, maybe this stuff wouldn't be happening. And then these leftist groups fund these psychopaths, just like BLM was funded. So she didn't have strong statements before with these people, but now she's running for president. So she wants to not look like totally awful. And I get it. But where's the strong, like, oh, we're going to make sure that people who cross the threshold from speech to violence to vandalism, to that they're going to be charged to the fullest extent of the law. Like, where's that I was the prosecutor energy? Like, I know they're kind of trying to test out the cop versus the felon situation with her and Donald Trump, but where's that energy? Where's that law and order energy actually at? But they don't want to go too far because their base, they still want to vote for them. These crazy pro Palestine folks who are really pro, Hamas, because they're actually against, Western democracy. Like Netanyahu, like made a speech, and he mentioned how these people. It's trying to make the point that it's bigger than them just hating Israel, and these people prove their point. Like Chris Murphy was upset about Netanyahu's statements and how political they were, and talking about the protesters and stuff. And then, like hours later, he has to give a statement condemning the protesters, who are burning American flags and hanging Palestinian flags and stuff. So they made the point. They're perfect, the perfect illustration of what's going on in our country. So I want to hear more from Kamala. I'm looking for the tweet from Chris Mercy. I found him. The speech was more a commentary of U.S. politics rather than a path forward for Israeli and U.S. security. The suggestion that any American who objects to the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza is a Hamas sympathizer was way out of bounds. That was what he tweeted, okay? I've seen some disturbing images coming out of today's protests at the Capitol. I'll always support Americans exercising their First Amendment rights, but pro Hamas cheers and messages of hate and anti Semitism have no place in our country, period. Well, you know, kind of seems like he had a point. Kind of seems like the PM had a point. A lot of these crazy people are just caught up in like more cultural Marxism. It's about the oppressor and the oppressed, and they choose who's the oppressed, and then they go after the oppressor. Like when October the 7th happened, it was very disturbing to see so many people basically defend Hamas by being all kind of a like, well, what they did wasn't right, but when you spend all those years being treated this kind of way, and occupied and by the colonizers, then any form of retaliation is justified. And that's a wild take to me, but it was really disturbing because I know, I'm like, y'all call white people colonizers all the time. Like if you're like on TikTok or the places, there's like this animosity with just like white people, just calling them colonizers. And so people have this like, kind of attitude in our country, folks who've been here living life and have got ancestors been here a long time, like your ancestors have been here a long time, they're calling everybody colonizers because it's just those cultural dynamics of oppressor, the cultural Marxism stuff. That's what it's really down to, and that's why you see the BLM stuff going hand in hand. Those same folks are part of the same kind of mission, and they're just transferring their obligation to a new cause, but it's the same kind of mentality. So these folks are saying that it's about Gaza and it's about Palestine and it's about those people. These people don't even know enough or care enough to know which river and which sea. They don't care enough to know the facts. They don't care enough to really look this stuff up. They repeat what they hear online, and then they make everyone the villain who doesn't agree with them, and they'll put a watermelon in their bio and and give money that that'll go to supplies that I'm sure will be confiscated by Hamas anyway. And then they won't say a peep about the hostages, even though there's American hostages over there. So I want to. So again, it's nice that Kamala had some strong words, but it's not enough. It's not enough. Like it's like when Trump was like tweeting law and order like during BLM stuff. I'm like, aren't you the president? Like people were really frustrated at certain points. Now they would do stuff when they could get him on like federal land and or whatever, but they didn't want to push too much with like the Insurrection Act and other stuff like that. But like just okay, you tweeting law and order doesn't really help, right? So putting out a statement like, "Oh, this stuff is bad. It's really bad. We don't agree with that." Oh, okay. But what are you actually going to do? What are you actually going to do now? Like Biden saying, "When I my second term, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to codify Roe v. Wade. I'm going to do that." Aren't you the president right now? Aren't you the president right now? You shouldn't have to dangle stuff in front of people's faces. I'm gonna cancel mortgage. What's this? Did they say mortgages? No, cancel medical bills. You could, if you really feel that way, bro, you could do that right now, or you could try right now. Why are you trying to dangle that carrot in front of people's faces in case you win? You're the president right now. You can keep a promise right now, or you can try. You can try. Because if you and you say, well, I don't have the numbers in the House right now to do what I want to do, you might not have them later. You might not have the House or the Senate. So what are you going to do? Nothing. So what you there for? What are you there for? That's the question. So there's people tweeting things like, these are your options, choose wisely. Like the burning of the flag, the Palestinian stuff, the versus like Trump covered in blood, raising his hand with the American flag. Man, that was such an iconic moment, man. He just has such a good sense for these things. And people are pointing out this like when Ukraine's leadership is there versus when Israel is there. Like Kamala's not on duty. You know, I think she went to some sorority thing instead. Speaking of Kamala, still on that topic, Fox News apparently reported that some Democrats said that there was these talking points that went out, which if you're in politics, if you're in the House, if you're in the Senate, or if you work for some political party and you're just sending stuff out to other activists or whatnot, sometimes there'll be like some event that's going on and you want folks to be on message, be on brand. So you'll send out some talking points for people to repeat. And so these kind of talking points they had are, you know, Vice President Harris was never appointed the border czar. There's never been such a position. It does not exist. Border czar title invented by Republicans and press repeats. Now, that's very interesting. How many times are you aware that Republicans say a phrase and the press just goes along with it? The Republicans make up something and then the press just goes along with it because they're just so copacetic with the Republicans. They're just symbiotic in nature. They just do what the Republicans want them to do, even if the Democrats don't like it. The press will just keep using the phrase. Does that sound like something that usually happens? Does that sound like something that just happens? No, the press did use this phrase. They used the phrase. They certainly did. But not because the Republicans originated this and made them do it. I'm not saying that the Republicans weren't the first one to do it, but it was just something that they used, that they said, because she did have a role that Biden designated to her. So trying to downplay what she did or didn't do, didn't accomplish, is silly. We have so many receipts. And I know it's like George Orwell, and you know, where you just get to rewrite history. Everything is rewritten. Was not asked to be the lead on admin's immigration or border enforcement policies, POTUS tasked her to lead admin's diplomatic root causes strategies in Central America, not border policy, tasked with addressing push factors driving migrants to flee their countries, secure private sector investment, promoting democracy, economic opportunity, um, 5 billion in private sector investments, role focused on changing conditions in other countries, not U.S. border crossings by migrants from Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. The countries in Vice President Harris' root causes portfolio have decreased dramatically in recent years. In 2023, they made up 22% of all border crossings, down 41% in 2021. So, you hear the kind of comments being said by the media, by Democrats. Even on TikTok, folks are already pushing back against the borders are stuff. And it's crazy. And it's scary. The way that people are trying to rewrite her history is scary. It's concerning because you may not like who ends up winning the White House. You might not like that as Trump. You might not like that as Kamala. You might not like that it was Biden or Bush or Obama, whatever. But the press should be able to objectively do their jobs. They should be able to report the facts. And the fact that they want to revamp history and hide information and cover up, and they can go all ham on Biden when he messes up in the debate, when like a week ago they said that he was fine, they're all cheap fakes. And and he got to do his address, and they're like, oh, he's so heroic, he's such a hero, for stepping aside. You pushed the old man off the cliff. What do you mean he's a hero? But oh my gosh, Biden served ice cream. It's so amazing. It's so sweet. Well, after you guys made him resign on National Sunday Day, yeah, they had ice cream. Yeah, they served ice cream last night. And the reporters gushing like they're serving ice cream. A Biden favorite. They let this man get away with addressing the nation in the Oval Office on why he was dropping out, and he didn't explain. He didn't say, I'm very sick. Because if he was very sick, he'd have to step aside, but he wants to be president till the end of his term. He did not sound good immediately. I didn't watch it until like right before I came on with you guys. And as soon as he said the first word, I was like, oh my gosh. Because he didn't sound good. He didn't sound good at all. Let me just play like the very beginning. Didn't sound good. I hope this ad doesn't play.
My fellow Americans, I'm speaking to you tonight from behind the resolute desk in the Oval Office. In this sacred space, I'm surrounded by portraits of extraordinary American presidents. Thomas Jefferson wrote the immortal words that guide this nation. George Washington showed us presidents are not kings. Abraham Lincoln, who implored us to reject malice. Franklin Roosevelt, who inspired us to reject fear. I revere this office, but I love my country more. It's been the honor of my life to serve as your president. But in the defense of democracy, which is at stake, I think it's more important than any title. I draw strength and I find joy in working for
blah, 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 blah. So he just said we got to save democracy. I got to step aside to save democracy. In other words, if the people get a choice to decide between me and Trump, if the people get a chance to choose between me, the president, and they look at my record and they say, I can vote for him or I can vote for Trump, the guy who was the president before, I'm going to reject this, what we have now, and try to get back to where we were before. If you think giving the people that decision, and it's been clear that it's supposed to have been that decision for a long time now. That's what his people voted for. And that's what the people on the right voted for. The Republicans voted for. Now you're saying I can't allow that decision to play out, so I got to step aside. You're not defending democracy, quote unquote, because we're not a democracy, but you're not defending democracy. You are terrified of it. You are terrified of democracy. That's the real problem, Joe. That's the real problem. That's why people were trying to knock Trump off the ballot. That's why people were trying to sue him to the point where he lost all of his money. That's why he had all these indictments against him. That's why he has a conviction of something that is just utterly stupid, the 34 counts of nonsense. That's why Democrats proposed taking away the Secret Service from him. In hindsight, that was very awful considering what almost happened to him, like, what, 2 weeks ago? You're not doing this for democracy. You're terrified of democracy. You're terrified of it. Absolutely terrified of it. And your people, your former president you served under, and George freaking Clooney got together and the media followed to push you out. Sorry, I got like a tickle in my throat. It's so annoying. He did not address him being sick at all. It's obviously there's something wrong. But you know what? His son, Beau Biden, who died of brain cancer, people thought he was going to run for governor. Like, and they were still, people knew that something was wrong with him, but they didn't know how sick he was. And there was just kind of speculations about people talking about him being sick. But they were still like, is he running? And when he died, it was a shock. It was a shock. So I'm not surprised that they're willing to let this man run himself into the ground, that his family is willing to let himself run himself into the ground in front of the American people. I'm not surprised. This is what they do. It's that kind of family. But George Clooney, Obama, they couldn't allow the whole party go down. And I don't know if they think there's much of a chance of them salvaging the presidency. I don't know if they actually believe that, or if they're just really, really trying to save the House and the Senate. And maybe that's what they're trying to do. Make sure that Trump doesn't have full control when he comes in. Maybe that's what's really the case. But Kamala Harris, who the people have never voted for president, who is so incredibly unpopular when she ran in 2020, now she gets to be the nominee and run a very short race, not on who she is, on how the media is trying to redefine her as, and the roles that she played, and the things that she said, and the things that they said and reported about her, they're trying to pretend didn't happen. This is not about democracy. It is not about democracy. And they have taken so many steps prior to this that have been awful for democracy, quote unquote. But this is just the most blatantly craziest thing. And that's all he says. I have to step aside because I have to do what's best for my party because of democracy, and we can pass the torch. You should have passed the torch primary season. You shouldn't have run again. When you ran in 2020, you were supposed to be the bridge candidate, the transition candidate. You were supposed to be one term. That was everyone's understanding. And you decided to run again because you are a selfish, prideful old man. And you'd still be in this race if not for Obama and George freaking Clooney. Okay? And probably whatever kind of health scare that actually happened that Friday when he went away. And here's another kicker for you. There was a historian. It was reported on Friday, last Friday, that this historian was going to help Joe Biden with the speech. And he said that was false. The reporting was false. That he was going to help Biden with a dropout speech. And guess what? Guess what? It was true. He helped him with his darn speech. So they just can't help but lie. And you're a freaking presidential historian or just a historian, and you out here lying. You out here lying, and I don't even know why you lied about it, because it's not like it was a great speech. It wasn't. It's a shame that he needed help writing that at all. It wasn't even good. And it explained nothing. It explained nothing. But he still insists that he did a great job. He still insists that he was a great president. Still insisting that stuff. But we know the truth. We have to live through the Biden age. And I just don't appreciate being lied to. It's like the ultimate form of disrespect. To me, anyway. It's very disrespectful. Yeah, historian John Meacham to me just now via text. The report about my doing anything with a speech is totally false. Comes as Meacham is being talked about by some Democrats as a Biden confidant who might be working on an exit the race speech for President Biden. Robert Costa reported that on the 19th. And he worked on his speech to craft. He crafted his speech that he addressed the other night. Lies everywhere. They can't help it. They can't help it. So that means if they were kind of working on an exit speech and this stuff was being reported on Friday, I think that was the 19th. Yeah, last Friday. And they didn't drop the announcement till Sunday early afternoon. And his staff was still like insisting he was going to be in the race. What were they just insisting, or what did he have some kind of scare? Some kind of big medical scare? Because he didn't look too good when he was getting in that car. And I know he's old and feeble, but maybe it was more than COVID. There's rumors about lots of stuff that were going on. And I don't know. But he said he wasn't getting out unless God told him, or there was a sickness or something. We deserve more of an explanation than what we got. And he used the Oval Office for a stump speech. And his rhetoric is dangerous. I have to drop out because we got to save democracy. That's the most important thing. I wasn't going to do it before unless God told me to do it. But now I know I have to drop out because it's the most important thing in this world. We got to defeat Donald Trump. I don't even think he said his name, Trump, but we knew he was talking about. So what happens in November? Trump wins. Democracy's just gone, quote unquote. People voted and it's just the end of the country. What are people supposed to do? What do you want people to do when it's the end of democracy? What are people supposed to do? Because the answer is probably take up arms. That's the answer, is it not? If it's the literal end of democracy, yeah. But you don't want people to do that, and you're not going to do that. So stop freaking people out. Just stop this narrative. Both sides can stop. We can still debate with people on the issues and vote for as long as we're allowed to, I guess. But he told us after Trump was shot, which they're trying to, like, I don't know, spin that now weird, as if they're saying, oh, Trump needs to prove that he was actually shot. I'm like, didn't we all watch the same video? But now they're saying it was shrapnel. It's like, shrapnel how? Shrapnel from what? Like, does it matter? Like, we watched, there was an attack, there was a shooter, he was far too close. shouldn't have gone in the perimeter. He tried to kill him. You saw there was the picture with the bullet whizzing by. You saw Trump hit his ear. There were the noises. He dropped down. There's blood. So it was a graze, whether it was shrapnel or bullet, whatever. Someone tried to kill him and someone died. What is this narrative? What is this narrative that Kamala Harris wasn't really the border czar, but and Trump wasn't really shot with a bullet? Like, what is going on here with the press? What is going on? It's just freaking nuts. If we can't depend on our institutions, that's what's the craziest thing. I wrote an article about how Biden and his folks are the bigger threat to democracy because everybody's been using all these powers to try to defeat Trump again and again and again and again and again. And it makes people concerned. Like when you hear about the Bragg indictment and how unjust that was, what normal people might be thinking, oh my gosh, if they did that to me, if they're willing to do something so blatantly evil and wrong and unjust to the person who people investigate and watch and see world, what are they do to someone they're not paying attention to, but they want to destroy? That's the kind of dread that like goes inside of people. When I told a cousin of mine who's a Democrat, a female Democrat out of Detroit, I explained the case with Alvin Bragg and Trump. She said, oh, so they're treating Trump like they treat black men. That's what she said. That's what she said. That was her interpretation of the situation. People don't like this stuff, but they want to normalize it. These tactics, these links that they'll go to destroy people. And yet you think he's the threat to democracy? It's crazy. And in a media who act like he's fine, Biden's totally fine. You're crazy for noticing. You're lying. It's a conspiracy. And then when everybody saw it real time in the debate, it's, oh, we got to get rid of this guy. Oh my gosh. What about your health? It's how can you function? Blah, blah, blah. And he's just getting angrier each interview. And when they're finally successful pushing him out, he's still going to stay on as president. But hey, he's not running anymore. They have their new shiny Obama, which she's never going to be an Obama. She's just not that guy. So they could be all nice to her. And now they can be nice to Biden again because he gave them ice cream when he dropped out. It's insane. Anyway. Anyway, I think that's all I got for you guys today. And I think that's enough. Oh my gosh. House Resolution 5253 states she is the border czar. Is that was that something they voted on today, or is that something old? Because I saw that the House voted on something. Was that I saw they voted on something today. I just didn't see if that was if they defined her as the border czar, or if that was something old from them defining. Someone said, "Hey, Queen, I'm good. You're coming in at the tail end of my live, though." Someone from Twitch. I'm doing good, but we're nearing the end. It was back in March of 2003. Oh, when they condemned her as the border czar, or when they defined her as the border czar. Oh, before I let you guys go, let me find that montage that some people put together of the media saying that she was the border czar. Let me show you guys that. Oh, let me show you this Republican Pounce headline too. This is the craziest Republican. You know how Republicans comment on something and then they report it as Republicans Pounce? Republicans pounce after Netanyahu protesters burn U.S. flags and wave Hamas ones instead. Why would we pounce on that? Why isn't everyone pouncing on that? Why do you have to report that as Republicans pounce? It's so silly. So silly. Trying to but I think it was I know this little dog logo. I'm trying to think of who made it. I play their stuff all the time. Their montages. By the way, there was a crazy person who drove over a person who was putting up a Trump sign in Michigan. And it wasn't even with a car. It was like a I forget what it's called, but it wasn't a car. It looked like, I don't know if it was a thing that you do with the right on with the lawn or something else, but I'm like, what kind of sick person? They did other vandalizing stuff, but what kind of freaks would run over someone over a political sign? But when in the midterm, someone shot an old lady who was canvassing in Michigan for against Prop 3, the abortion thing. And so someone shot an old lady. She ended up surviving, but that did not get a lot of press. Not like how it should have got. I mean, these people out here were just crazy. Like it's not that deep to be shooting people over this political stuff. It's not that deep. I'm trying to find it. I don't know if I can find it, guys. Maybe I didn't There's a montage of the media saying that she was the border czar. I thought I had saved it somewhere. Oh, I had retweeted it. Okay, my bad. Okay, here we go.
Quote unquote border czar. Vice President Harris was not a border czar.
Meantime, Vice President and border czar Kamala Harris facing some backlash.
What he said about Harris and immigration was not true. She was never appointed border czar.
And this will be her first visit to the U.S.-Mexico border region since she was appointed as the border czar by President Biden.
People gonna have to counter the misinformation. You already hear folks talking about the border czar. She wasn't the border czar.
President Biden tapped Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, to be the border czar.
Now, she wasn't the border czar. That's what Republicans labeled her.
They were very critical of Kamala Harris, especially in her role as border czar.
Now what she's up against is folks lying about her border record, calling her a border czar.
Kamala Harris, who was appointed as the border czar.
The Biden team didn't declare her the border czar. They wanted her to work on kind of the root causes of immigration.
There has been so much criticism against Kamala Harris. She was the border czar.
Calling her sort of the border czar, which wasn't necessarily the case.
So the border, if they weren't planning to address it in a major way, do not make her your border czar. She met with some of the Northern Triangle countries, but nothing has effectively changed.
Yeah. So they totally called her the border czar. Now they could still say that she didn't have the authority to actually implement the actual border policies or enforcement. And she was supposed to be focused on mitigating the people coming from those particular countries, while still admitting that she was called the border czar. You can do both. So people trying to pretend like they didn't call her that, and Axios going back and editing their paper. Like I told you guys how a reporter made the claim, like they tweeted out a story saying that she wasn't called the border czar, and that same reporter wrote in the past that she was the border czar. Axios went back in their stories and added an editor's note saying Axios is among one of the papers that falsely called her the border czar. Okay, so everybody's just wrong, and she wasn't the thing that you guys just called her. It's really bizarre. It's really, really bizarre, guys. Very strange. Very strange. The story that I mentioned in Michigan, it wasn't an UV. I'll just play it. It's just a minute and like minute 20 seconds long, this clip. But I saw someone on TikTok first talk about it, but I thought maybe they had caught the person, but they hadn't caught the person.
Hancock City Police say they need your help to find someone who could have caused a string of incidents over the weekend.
The cases range from vandalism to a hit and run involving an ATV. TV6's Vinny Lavia joins us in the studio to break down what we know. Vinny.
Grace, Cody, the Hancock Police Department is asking the community to help identify a suspect in a string of incidents in the city yesterday. The incidents are 2 vehicle vandalizations and a hit and run. All 3 are suspected to be politically motivated. In all 3, the suspect was driving an ATV four-wheeler. The hit and run was at a residence on Anthony Street at roughly 5:45 in the afternoon. An 80-year-old resident was setting up a Donald Trump support signs in his yard. According to the police, the driver had pulled out the signs, and when the resident tried to put them back, the driver came back into the yard and ran the resident over. The resident is now at Portage Health in critical condition.
We're not sure what could happen. Could he die from these injuries? Possible. If there's anybody out there that has any information on the person driving this four-wheeler, please call the Hancock Police Department.
You can call the department at 906-482-3102, and you can find more details on uppermichigansource.com. Back to you.
That is nuts, man. Like, not worth it, man, to do all this crazy stuff. And I just can't imagine, like, an ATV, that is way more personal than, I mean, whatever you do, but is crazy running someone down. But so running someone down like that is bizarre. It's so there's so many hyper disturbed people out here. Like you guys remember when Rand Paul was attacked by his neighbor? Rand Paul was like mowing the lawn, and he just attacked him from behind. And the people like cheered on his neighbor. And Rand Paul, I think he punctured a lung with his ribs, and he had to have surgery, and he almost died. And what freaking Rand Paul do to anybody? Oh, Rand Paul has survived some scrapes, man. He's been in some jams for his political beliefs, and he's not a bad dude, man. At least observing from afar. He's one person I haven't met in person, don't really know personally, but you know, he doesn't seem like a bad dude. Poor guy. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate, because it does cost a stream, run my website, all that stuff. So if you guys can support, I really do appreciate you guys. You guys can check out different merch that's available on the store, on the website, and you guys can also check out my different books that I have. I have 18 that are all together published. 2 are nonfiction, the rest are fiction. One of my books is, of course, God is Blatantly Against Abortion. And I saw a wild video the other day by this critical scholar, and he was replying to this one guy, and they were talking about life starts at first breath, and that's one of the dumbest things. And he was trying to say that life affirmed the idea about life starting at first breath, and he referenced like the flood and how every living thing that breathes, and I'm just like, okay, but not everything that like takes in air like that is that's not the only kind of way that we evaluate whether something is living. And even still, babies breathe. They just don't breathe like we do. Like we inhale air and we expel we expel, gases and stuff we don't need, pollutants we don't need, and we inhale and we take in oxygen, and the oxygen goes from our lungs into our blood, and the blood carries the oxygen to the rest of our body and stuff. And our cells need the oxygen to live. that's how babies breathe. The babies, they don't, they're inside, so they can't get to the outside air because they're not born and stuff. And the lungs take a while to develop, but they are developing them. One thing that they do is that at a certain point they start swallowing amniotic fluids and swallowing so they can strengthen those lungs. That's all kind of part of the process. But how they breathe is that through the placenta, they take in like the mother's nutrients and blood and stuff through that placenta, and they filter them out, and they get oxygen from their body. So they're still getting oxygen. They're taking in oxygen like we take in oxygen, and they do it through the blood, through like our body breathes through the blood. I mean, that's the only way we get their source from the air, but it all kind of transfers. So that breath of life is what it helps the mother, but it also transfers to the baby. So if that's still your metric for life, I don't know how you exclude the baby. And then he also tried to dismiss this line about a creature's life is in the blood. I don't think we have to use that scripture, but if we're going to use that scripture, the life of creatures is in our blood because the blood transfers the oxygen. So you don't have to take this stuff as literal scientific statements, but if we want to go that route, they're scientifically accurate. So it was really bizarre, really bizarre. But I had never heard him use those kinds of points before. There's a friend of mine, well, mutual friend of mine. I don't know him in person. I don't even know what he looks like because he just does all of his commentary with like a sock puppet. But he has a page that's dedicated to debunking this guy Dan. So he's gonna do one about that video this weekend. So I'm curious what he'll say, but because I had never seen him go that route before. So I don't know if at some point I wonder if some of the things that he says are just clickbait for his audience. So yeah, trying to dehumanize the unborn baby just to justify killing it. This is how sick these people are. Yeah, it's true. But he'll say stuff like there's nothing in the Bible that you can give you the conclusion that abortion is wrong. And I'm like, how can you say that? Like you can, like there's no way to like, I think it's pretty obvious from the Bible that abortion is wrong, murder bad, child sacrifice is a big no-no, etc., etc. But the John the Baptist was obviously the Holy Spirit was interacting with the baby in the womb there. It says a child leapt in the womb. Are you going to make the case that Jesus Christ wasn't the Messiah in the womb? He came in, as born to a virgin and all that stuff. So I just don't know how you can gather those kinds of opinions, that it's just silly for Christians to make those kinds of assumptions. I think there's a lot to draw from, even if you want to come to a different conclusion. But he says definitive kind of statements like that all the time. But that was the first time I heard him say something about life at first breath. And life at first breath is one of the dumbest, most repetitive things that I hear. So I wonder if that was kind of clickbait-y stuff. Because I'm on lives all the time. People will not be saying anything about religion, and people say life starts at first breath, and it's just not true. And I've never also heard him use Numbers 5 and it's 11 through the end of the chapter, I believe, which is the procedure about a jealous husband and how they take her before a Levitical priest and do kind of like a test to see if she's slept around or something. And they use that to try to say that that's an abortion. I've never heard him use that before in any of the videos I've seen addressing that issue. So if he eventually gets to it, I'm going to assume that part of his tactics are to go along with popular narratives of his audience to appease them, because I would have brought it up by now. He usually tries to bring up like the two men fighting together and they accidentally hit a pregnant woman, and if nothing happens, and to her then maybe there's a fine, or but if she dies, it's life for a life, eye for an eye, or whatever. I don't want to go into the whole explanation of that. I explained that in my book, and I briefly explained that on my website and on an article. But to briefly kind of throw that one out of the window, that's about an accidental death. It's not about a premeditated homicide. So I don't even know why people bring that up. Anyway, thank you guys. I do not want to do a second and a third closing. I guess I'm on my second closing. I don't want to do a third and fourth one. So I'm gonna for real let you go this time. Thank you guys for listening, and I will see you tomorrow.